But what the marketing pulpit is about is strategy. Use social media and stop letting it use you. That's one thing about a business. It's an equalizer. It's a game changer. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. I may stop at some period, but as long as folks acting the fool, got to talk about it. And one of the things you want to do as a business owner is to create barriers of entry. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more, they should be given more flexible work hours. We have to think like the successful companies. Welcome to the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host, and we are here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good marketing gospel. We're not saving souls, we're saving businesses, saving jobs, saving our community. Now, if I save a soul along the way, don't hold that against me. We just call it icing on the cake because the mission here is to build strong businesses in our community so we can put our people to work. And we do that with business development, job creation, and service. If you ever find yourself at a business crossroads and not sure which way to turn, here it is. Just turn on the Marketing Pulpit Show because we're on a mission. That's right. We're about building businesses. We're about putting people to work. We're about uplifting our community and building that solid economic foundation. We've been doing it now for 12 years, and we plan to continue to do it because we have work to do. We made some great strides and great progress, but there's always much to do. I'm Robert Gatewood. I am a business developer by trade. I have a company called Gatewood Marketing and Web. I'm also a adjunct professor at Prince George's Community College. I'm a business consultant for the Small Business Administration. I've written 2 books, one called Played in Full, and the other is Smarter Than the Boss. So yes, I've been at this for a minute, got a little receipts, as the young people say it, but it's not about me, it's about you. What can I do to help you? Tell you, boy, one of the things I've learned over the years is this thing called reciprocity. It's giving back. You help people. If you help people, you get help in return. And it has been work for me. It has helped my business succeed. I've become very successful, and I've built it on a foundation of helping other people and putting other people first. Go to marketingpulpit.com. You can find out more about the show. Go to marketingpulpit.com. You can also watch the show right there on the homepage. Right there on the homepage at marketingpulpit.com. You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. And you can also find us on LinkedIn. We are all things Marketing Pulpit. Or just go to Google and Google Marketing Pulpit, and you'll see some of the things we've been doing over the years. You'll see some of the videos, you'll see past shows, and get this information. And hopefully we can help you with your business aspiration. We are a business development show, even though the name Marketing Pulpit leads some to believe that we are a religious show. That we are not. We are actually a business development show. The Marketing Pulpit name, Monica, came through my father, who was a Baptist minister, and I have adapted much of his delivery techniques and antics, but the show is about business. But it's a ministry just the same. It's a business ministry. It's a business ministry, and I'm glad to be the main deliverer of this marketing message. We have a lot going on today. We're still in Women's History Month. We're on the last leg of that month, and their theme this month is Women Providing Healing and Promoting Hope. Those are 2 aspirations that we can all get behind: providing healing and promoting hope. Yes, so let's, if you have women in your life who are doing things and people that you know about, let's support them and uplift them, because, man, I'm telling you, it's rough out here. It's rough out here at times. We've seen that really recently at the Supreme Court hearing for Ketanji Brown Jackson. And, man, you talk about if a sister ever needed some healing and hope. I think this country needs some healing and hope. The way they really treated this Supreme Court nominee. I heard today that Mitch McConnell said he would not be supporting the nominee. Man, I'm telling you, it's hard to. This is a business development show, okay? Let's keep that in mind. But, man, I'm telling you, it's hard to bite your tongue on some of these things that we see going on around us. I did watch the Supreme Court hearings this week, and I saw it was a shameful display on how this talented woman was treated before the court. We saw the 3 Stooges, Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton, and what's the other one, Josh Hawley. And they're bringing up all this. They're trying to paint her as as a lenient on pedophilia. And we know that's code word. That's some of those QAnon conspiracy theorists talking points. And I think, quite honestly, they're trying to get this sister hurt because they know these people are not screwed. They're unhinged. And so when you try to paint somebody as a lenient on pedophilia and child pornography, think about the Pizzagate, where some knucklehead came all the way to Washington, D.C. to try to kill Hillary Clinton because they said they had children locked in a basement somewhere in D.C. So when you have senators who are supposed to be leaders of the country taking that kind of line of attack, and they're well aware of how unhinged some people are, I think it's a shameful display. It's a disgrace. And it's really a black mark on this country. And then while you're talking about the Supreme Court, we have one of the Supreme Court justices, his wife, Jeannie Thomas, who's the wife of Clarence Thomas, who seemed like she was a ringleader in planning this insurrection on January 6th. They have texts between Mark Meadows, who was the president's at the time, chief of staff, and the Supreme Court justice's wife, and who also happened to be the long dissenter when they was asking about releasing Trump's records. He should have recused himself. And so, boy, this has not been a good week for justice in these United States. It's really been a shameful display. But anyway, we are here to talk about business, and we'll talk about some items in the news coming up later on. Also, later in the show, we're going to have a special guest, attorney Tisha Hillman. She's going to talk about some business law, things about estate planning and wills and how to get it. Many of us business owners out here, you got to lay down some type of plan on when you're not here anymore. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. And Tisha she was actually one of our co-hosts many years over at Radio One. And so I'm glad to have her back on the platform this morning. She's coming up at the 11 o'clock hour. And later in the show, I'm going to talk about, is all money good money? I may have talked about this topic before, but I'm going to talk about it again because it bears repeating. Should you say thanks, but no thanks to some opportunities that come your way? We're going to talk about that and why all money is not good money. That's coming up later on in the show. And we're also going to talk about, as you say, some items in the news. Before we get to that, we're going to talk about also, so I've seen several instances where people, just good, hardworking business owners, they get caught in this trap of comparing themselves to others. And sometimes they feel like they don't measure up. But in comparing, we have this apples to orange comparison. Matter of fact, it's more like apple to pineapple. Because I've said this and I'm going to continue to say it. There's only one you. You have to pursue you and what makes you unique and stop this comparison. Now, I must admit, this tendency has been exacerbated by the internet. And you go on the internet and people, they see other businesses, they see other people doing things, and sometimes they're exaggerating their capabilities and their successes. And there's nothing wrong with letting people know you're doing well, but as long as you don't take it to the extreme and showing off. But as far as celebrating, I'm all in favor of celebrating, but just don't take it to an excess. But if you're a business owner or somebody watching this and you start to measure yourself against that, it can be a mistake, because there are certain things that you need to look at that's happening in your business that's unique. Your audience may not be the same as the one you're being compared against. Your funding, you may have gotten your money through bootstrap, and they may have had a relative to die. You wonder why they're so far ahead of you. So you have to keep measuring yourself against your unique situations. How long have you been in business versus some of these other people that you're comparing yourself against? You may have started a year ago. They could have been out here 10, 15, 20 years. So once again, you have to look at where you are versus where they are. Does this business have the freedom to abandon the market? In other words, are they selling what you're selling sort of as a side item, but it's your main source of income? If that's the case, then you can't match them price for price. You can't do certain things that they're doing. You have to look at where your main source of revenue is versus theirs. The industry itself, you can't be comparing yourself against somebody in a different industry. Just because you look like them, you wear the same kind of clothes, you have the same age and other characteristics, they may be in a totally different industry, and you can't make those comparisons. Where are they located? You may be in a high rent area. They may be in a place where labor is cheap, supplies are abundant. You have to take these matters into consideration. And then the last but not least is they're just not you. Some people have a certain purpose. Their purpose may have been to go out here and make all the money they can make, however they can make it, legally or illegally. But you, on the other hand, you may have a greater purpose. Your purpose may be to save the world, to help children, to help battered women, to help business owners. You may have the greater good of society as your driving force. And when you make those kind of comparisons, you have to make sure that you have to go back and look at yourself and your purpose and stop comparing yourself with people who have a totally different agenda, totally different resources, and on a totally different path than you are. Celebrate yourself. You can do this, but you can't do it by comparing yourself to others. You know your purpose. Let's go out here and do it for you and what's important to you. But what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some items that are happening in the news. I'd like to welcome Marilyn. Thank you for joining this morning. Miss Marilyn Platinum, very sharp young lady. She has a boutique, Destin Styles. And go to her website and just check her out. I was checking her website the other day, and I had some nice clothes on there. I said, wow, that's some good stuff. So anyway, thank you for joining the show this morning, Marilyn. Also, welcome everybody who's tuning in from the different platforms. I see you on Facebook. I see people tuning in on LinkedIn. I see people tuning in on YouTube. So I see the numbers. Thank you for tuning in. You can tune in. You can also go to marketingpulpit.com and you can see the show right from the homepage of the website. You don't even have to be on social media. And also, we're asking you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which the URL is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And that's like our channel. We're going to be building that channel. The numbers are going up thanks to you. We weren't supporting it, pushing it as much. But we're going to start pushing that, getting people to come to the channel, because we're going to build this channel into our own marketing pulpit channel and brand. And so also we like for you to subscribe to our podcast. Now, the podcast, the difference between the podcast, of course, and the video is that the podcast is you can listen to it without having to try to look at the visuals. The files are smaller. It's more accessible because you can listen to some of the popular platforms such as Spotify, such as Apple iTunes, such as iHeartRadio, and even Google Podcasts. So you can go to these different platforms, download go to your favorite podcasting platform. If you're part of Spotify, we're already there. If you have iTunes on your phone, on your computer, we're already there. If you have Google, who doesn't have Google, right? Just Google us and the podcast will come up. Same thing with iHeartRadio. So we're trying to get this information to you in as many ways as possible. And we've made it easier now by launching our podcast. And we see the information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. We'll be glad to have you follow us on the podcast. And we try to put up a podcast every week. It's not the entire show. We usually take the marketing sermon, which is about 10 to 15 minutes. And we put that on the podcast without the other information. So go ahead and get that information if you're trying to grow a business, or if you know somebody who's trying to grow a business and they're not necessarily on social media, or they don't necessarily want to see me. You don't have to see me. But if you need this information, the podcast is a good way to go. So hang on a second. We're going to take a quick break. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host, and we'll be back in a moment. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more. They should be given more flexible work hours. I may stop in some period, but as long as folks bag the food, got to talk about it. Now, the 2022 theme of Women's History Month is women providing healing and promoting hope. And of course, that ties into the ceaseless efforts of women during the pandemic. And heaven knows we could use some more healing and hope during this time. I know oftentimes in our community, we feel that giving women and other groups recognition takes away from the contributions and recognition of blacks. You can do both. Because when you think about it, we are represented in all of those groups. And when we form alliances with other groups, we're more powerful. It's hard to tackle some of these insidious forces by ourselves. So there's nothing wrong with aligning ourselves with other groups. And women definitely deserve our recognition, our praise. And that's why on this particular day, I do salute women. Welcome back to the show. I'm Robert Gatewood, and this is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good marketing gospel. You can find us on all of the major social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can also get us on, get the blurbs on Instagram. And so we're all things Marketing Pulpit. Or you can just go to Google and search for Marketing Pulpit, and you'll see many of the listings and places where we show up. I'm Robert Gatewood, and I am a business developer by trade, and I'm the producer and host of the show. Later in the show, we're going to have attorney Tisha Hillman. She's going to come on and talk about some business matters, and got an exciting show. And also, my sermon today, we're going to talk about is all business, good business. Should sometimes you say thanks, but no thanks, and we're going to tell you why or not. Let's talk about quickly some items in the news. Gas is in the news, very much in the news. Certain jurisdictions such as Maryland, state of Maryland, and let's see, Georgia, they have actually suspended their tax on gas to bring the prices down. And much of these prices have been exacerbated by the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and just supply chain issues. So, and other places have been taking steps. Now, some people are saying that this gas suspension is just going to cause companies to raise the price even more. And Governor Newsom of California is offering a $400 rebate to offset gas prices. So thank you for them. I like what they're doing. Now, Chicago businessman Willie Wilson he's a 77-year-old businessman who owns a medical supply business and produces a musical television program, and he's run for political office several times. He is giving away $1.2 million in free gas. Wow. He has pledged to donate $200,000 in gas at 10 gas stations around town. And he's agreed to hire temporary staff to pump the gas. And he actually rolled up his sleeves and got that out there and helped pump the gas himself. Go ahead, brother Wilson. Man, that's somebody who's not just talk. Now, this next group, they had a little more sinister approach to gas. They nabbed $50,000 worth of gas from a convenience store using remote control. They pulled a gang of thieves, pulled up they pulled up some tanks and took about 3,000 gallons of gas using remote control technology. They didn't dig it in the well. They didn't go in the ground. They went right up to the pump. And they claimed that the thieves had some type of remote control technology that allowed them to go in and get this gas. Let me look at my remote control here and see if I can. Oh, never mind. $50,000 in gas stolen from the pumps. Let's see what else is going on in the news. Uber has made it easier now for you to get a cab in New York City because they have added the cabs, the taxi cabs in the city to their app. So that means you can get a regular taxi cab by going to Uber now. And because Uber was having a shortage of drivers, so you're going to pay roughly the same fare that you would pay for the cabs as you would pay for Uber X. And I think I think that's a good idea because I think Uber was struggling not only with some of the shortages, but there are other credibility issues that it seemed to be working against it when it comes to safety and things like that. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Let's see here. Now, here's something that everybody should be aware of: is this new technology called Geo Fencing. This guy named Mitchell Jones, he was an aspiring actor in Atlanta. Somebody got into his house, went up and really did him some harm, and actually he suffered some fatal blows. Well, the detective used this new technology called Geo Fencing to pinpoint all of the cell phones that were in close proximity to Jones's home at the time of the murder. Now, the first time they had used this technology, but it's not the first time it's been used around the country. So what happens? They go to places like Apple, Google, Facebook, and they can submit a warrant, which gives them the information about the phones that were being used in the area. Now they were given the information on 500 on anyone who was within 500 feet within 45 minutes of the murder. And this guy Dante Holmes came up. He was not in the DNA database, but he was within that geofencing area, and he's in jail right now as a result of geofencing. Also down in Northern Virginia, a similar case. A gunfight took place after a party, and many in the fight could be seen talking on their cell phones. Well, the Fairfax detectives went to geofencing, and they asked the judge for the permission to do a digital dragnet and list all of the cell phones that were active in the area around the crime scene. Now, never mind that you could have just been walking by. You could have been at the gas station across the street. You could have been at the hotel, just minding your business. But now, suddenly, you're caught up in this crime. And so there are some privacy issues that are going on right now. They were using this technology for people that were caught up in the January 6th riot. Now I don't have any problem with that. But this operation that was used in Virginia was the first of its kind. And the folks in the hotel, of course, when you think about it, would you want to be caught up in this technology? You check into the hotel, you're minding your business, a gunfight breaks out in a couple of rooms down the hall. You're just trying to get in there and get your sleep on. You're there for business or whatever reason. Next thing you know, your cell phone is being caught up in a dragnet because of this geofencing. And then once they get that warrant approved, then they have access to certain information that's taking place on your phone. Now, in the state of Virginia, a handful of federal magistrates have turned down this application, but the vast majority have approved these geofence warrants with few questions until now. Well, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure about this one. I believe that bad guys need to be paid for their crimes, but there has to be some check and balance. There has to be somebody that says, look, let's not take this thing too far. Innocent people who are just going about their business, no matter how egregious the crime, are entitled to certain basic liberties, rights, and privacy. And so I think that this needs to be debated. I think bad guys need to be brought to justice. But I think when you can't just do it at the expense of just freedom-loving, innocent individuals in your pursuit of bad guys. There is an old saying that when certain crimes are so egregious that your innocence is not a good enough defense. So I don't want that to be the case as we start using this technology without some type of check and balance. Let's see what else is going on in the news. A first grade teacher was charged with drug trafficking. Wait a minute. It's got to be a mistake. This young lady, 34-year-old teacher, was arrested at her home in Fayetteville, North Carolina on Friday. And they seized over 4 pounds of methamphetamine during the investigation. She's a first grade teacher at Honeycutt Elementary School in Fayetteville. Man, I know these teachers don't get paid enough. I've talked about that on several occasions, but selling drugs, a first grade school teacher, well, there's a couple of things wrong with that. First of all, I do agree. Teachers not paid enough. But at the same time, there is no justification. I don't care how bad things become, how dire your situation may be. You have to think about the example you're setting for these children. Now, these children, once they get a hold of this information, you think that's not going to weigh into their calculation on what path they should take, right or wrong, going forward? So you got to think about more than yourself when you're making these really boneheaded decisions. In Flint, Michigan, a school board member was removed from her presidency post after allegedly brutally assaulting a colleague. We're talking about war in the workplace right now. She was removed from her presidency after allegedly brutally assaulting a colleague. Now, I understand the discussion, according to one of the witnesses, was that the debate was over funding for Black schools. And the conversation got pretty heated. And the Danielle Green is accused of approaching this other lady, McIntyre, and somebody put somebody's finger in front of somebody's face. And there seems to be some type of discussion of who initiated the first finger pointing or putting finger on faces. Bottom line, Miss Green, regardless of who started it, she finished it. She punched her in the head and slammed her head into the desk. Man, it's a rough day for the school system. I've had all kind of praise, and I continue to praise and honor and herald the selfless devotion of our school administrators. But I'm not sure I can condone, well, I definitely don't condone the drug trafficking, and I don't condone the physical violence. But people should not lay hands on each other, no matter who's doing it. And I would just need to get more information on what happened there. But the violence and the fighting is just not, can't justify that under any circumstances. I've talked about this on many shows on these war in the workplace. Don't be the one to escalate it, and don't cross the line and break the law, because it's not going to end well for you. Because it's not just you that's affected. It's your family, your employers, family members, your sorors, your neighbors, because the camera's going to show up, and it's going to catch some people in this net that was not intended. So you got to weigh these decisions before you punch or whatever. I'm not, like I say, I'm not casting any blame on this, but I'm just saying, whatever the case, you have to remember, whatever your action you decide to take, just know others will be impacted. Let's see, in Ashburn, Virginia, a woman was sexually assaulted by a man posing as a food delivery worker. Once again, I've been talking about this, that there's got to be some type of checks and balances on these services. If it's not the workers again being assaulted, then it's the delivery people doing the assaulting, or now people pretending to be the delivery people. Man, I love convenience and I love technology, but boy, where are we leading? Where are we going as a society? Is convenience that important? Then we throw in something like a pandemic and a lockdown, and convenience also becomes safety. But boy, at what cost? Let's see. A teacher throws a 9-year-old autistic boy across the room. Wait a minute. We are talking about, it's not been a good This has not been a good segment for teachers today. I didn't plan this, but that just seemed to be the topic right now. A lawsuit is pending for $700,000 where a 9-year-old autistic student was picked up and thrown across a classroom by a school employee in Oregon. I can't imagine what any kid could do that would warrant such an attack. Now, she was placed on 2 days leave following the incident, and wow, that's pretty bad. Come on, folks, we can do better. We can do better. Now, a TikToker says that food servers use a code word to talk about black customers at Cracker Barrel. This TikToker alleged that the hostess at Cracker Barrel used the term Canadian to talk about black patrons. Canadians? And one of the patrons said, I guess this one waitress was new and she didn't know the code. So one of the other employees said, look, we have some Canadians over there on table 4. Of course, this new staffer didn't know the code yet. She goes over to the table and say, how are you guys doing? I understand you're from Canada. I ain't racist, but you got to get your codes right. I wonder why. I went to a restaurant recently and they called me a ninja. I'm like, how do you know I know karate? Say, hey, you ninja? I'm like, Like they were talking code and I just didn't know about it yet. Oh boy, this country. I don't know sometimes. Ninja. Ooh, ha. Anyway, well, we're continuing the war in this workplace. A police chief, they dropped poison in his coffee using a dropper. I'm not even gonna get into that. Now, here's on a serious note. Down in Norfolk, Virginia, where I used to live for a brief period of time, back in the some time ago, I was with this company called Grand Union Supermarkets. I was a buyer. I was a regional grocery buyer. Had about 100 stores under my wing. Grand Union, Colonial Stores, Big Star. And I was in Norfolk. And when I saw this story, it caught my attention, first of all, because of it's a former place where I used to live. But as I read a little closer, I became very distraught because I read about a young lady. She was out with her friends. Sierra Jenkins, 25 years old. She was a reporter for the Virginia Pilot, Ledger Star. And another young man, Devon Harris, 25, of Portsmouth. And I'm very familiar with both those areas. I lived in Virginia Beach. I worked in Norfolk. And Portsmouth was right up the street. This young lady goes out for a night. She wasn't even a partier, I understand. She goes out just to enjoy herself. And an argument broke out over a spilled drink. At a spilled drink at this place called Chico's Pizza backstage Saturday morning. And it ended up with a shooting, and this dear young lady, I mean, it breaks my heart. 25 years old, young black lady. I mean, reminds me of my own daughter, same age, braids, eyeglasses. I mean, it's really just heartbreaking. And the argument started over a spilled drink. I mean, I have not been able to let this story go. It happened a week ago, but it's still haunting me to think that life is so meaningless that somebody would shoot carelessly into a crowd and take the life of these two young people. Folks, let me tell you, Black Lives Matter, not just to racists and supremacists. Black lives should matter to black people too. Black Lives Matter, period. No exceptions. So when you go out here and start making these careless moves, shooting up places, selling beefs, that is not considering that Black Lives Matter. So we got to practice what we preach, okay? And I'm tired of this beef also between Kanye and DL and Steve Harvey and Trevor Noah. Take some of that heat to these folks who are beating up on Ketanji Jackson Brown. Take some of that heat to Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton and Mitch McConnell. If you got all that energy, this animus, you want to get somebody, and I'm not talking about physical harm, but we have bigger fish to fry, ladies and gentlemen, than these petty beefs. That's just sucking oxygen and using up psychic energy that we need to be applying to some real serious issues. So yeah, I'm a little ticked off today about this young lady being killed. I'm ticked off about the mistreatment of the Supreme Court Justice nominee, Ms. Ketanji Jackson Brown. Yes, this is a business development show, but we don't live in a vacuum. These things will always come back to affect us in some way. So let's use our collective voices and fight for justice. It's not a race issue. If you don't believe me, just go look at Richard Perlman's comment. Man. Oh, Ron Perlman, that's his name. Ron Perlman. Man, you want to see somebody who's not black, but has a very good barometer of what's right and wrong. Just go listen to his statement after you listen to Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton talk about Ketanji Jackson Brown. Folks, that's going to wrap up the news for today. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to bring in a young lady. We are still in our Women's History Month. And I think it's very timely also that she's also a jurist. She's an attorney. And I'm sure she had some thoughts about what was going on during the Supreme Court Justice hearing this week. Anyway, folks, this is the Marketing Pulpit. I am Robert Gatewood, your host. Let's take a quick break here. We'll be back in a minute. I want to say good morning to some folks. Good morning, brother Gerald Brown, the greatest plumber in town. I want to say good morning to Alice Chambers Crowder down in North Carolina. What's up, cuz? I want to say good morning to Miss Marilyn Franklin. Thank you very much. Emmanuel Christ. Good morning, Emmanuel. Once again, I want to say much condolences to the passing to your son. Once again, I'm just too many emotions going on this morning. But this young man who's been a follower and client and of mine for many years, he lost his son this week. And my sincere condolences to you and from the entire Marketing Pulpit family. Thank you again for joining us this morning, as you have often done. Let's take another quick break, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host, and we'll be back in a moment. Don't you go anywhere. We want to bring in Sister Attorney Teacher Hillman. And also, we're going to talk about later in the show, we're going to talk about why all money is not good money. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more. They should be given more flexible work hours. I may stop in some period, but as long as folks are the food, got to talk about it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host, and we are here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good marketing gospel. Go to marketingpulpit.com. You can watch the show live right there on the homepage. Also, you can catch us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We're promoting our YouTube channel and also support our podcast. We have a podcast out there now. We put the information across the screen. Log in, subscribe to the podcast, and you can. We put out a podcast about once a week. And usually we take the sermon, our 10-minute sermon, and put it on the podcast. You can listen to it while you're jogging, while you're working out, while you're in the shower, while you're driving, and get this information to help build your business. And we talk about some of the motivational aspects of business, which is having the right mindset and some actual marketing tips. The last one we put up was how to make more money with less clients. And before that, we talked about context marketing. So go subscribe to the podcast. The URL is across the bottom of the screen. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we're all things marketing pulpit. I'm going to bring up our special guest today. Very sharp young lady, attorney Teacher Hillman. And so without further ado, let me get her up here on the screen. Good morning, Teacher Hillman, attorney at law. Good to see you this morning. How are you today?
Robert, I'm well. It's so good to see you. I feel like it's been so long.
It's been too long.
Yes, it is certainly good to see you. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Well, you're looking like you're looking prosperous and as you always have, and just glad to have you as our special guest today. And I think it's important to recognize you for many reasons. One, as an attorney, we've been watching what was going on in the news. We've also honoring and celebrating Women's History Month, and you are definitely a history maker. And so just want to welcome you today and thank you again for joining us. Before we just jump into your topic today, I've got to get because I know you're not one to shy away from saying what you feel and think. But what have you been thinking about this Supreme Court nomination process?
First of all, I want to say how historic this moment really is. As looking on the screen and seeing a face that looks like mine that also has locks,
right,
on the highest court in the land, is an amazing thing to witness. So that's the first thing. I want to fully recognize that. And looking at Miss Brown Jackson's background and all of the work that she's done, even with her father being an attorney. And I was reading about her, just kind of watching her father study different legal cases as she's a kid. So it's amazing to witness this generational bridging of the gap, if you may. Yes. It's a beautiful thing to witness. And so even with all of that, even with her background and her being more than qualified, of course, there's still going to be opposition because, where would we be if there were not, right?
Right.
And so it's not what's the word? It is to be expected, is what I would like to say. It is to be expected. If Mitch McConnell were to come and say, you know what, absolutely, welcome Supreme Court Brown Jackson. That would actually be shocking.
That would be a surprise, right?
That would be surprising. And so, I really look at it as just another opportunity for this woman to show her greatness through the midst of it all. Yes. So rather than focusing on those who are going to do what they're going to do anyway, because historically that's what they've done, I'd like to focus on where this moment is and what that means in terms of moving forward.
I love that approach. See, that's why I have to get your perspective. I'm over here ready to jump on I'm ready to go out here. I'm not going to be violent. I'm not a violent person. I don't encourage anyone.
Don't choose violence today. Don't choose violence.
Man, but boy, it is so hard to sit there and hold your tongue and watch this really assault. I mean, and putting this lady's life at risk by some of the accusations that have been leveled at her. So let's talk about, and also, like I said, thank you again for joining us on this Women's History Month. And once again, this whole moment is steeped in in significance on this eve of this nomination and on this month of women's history that's promoting healing and providing hope. Let's talk about business for a minute. I get questions often about from business owners. They're always worrying about the legal aspects of business. And some of the questions they've asked often, and I've pondered it myself often, what happens to your business? I mean, what should we be doing to protect our business? Let's just say if something happens, or if we, sometimes it could be through divorce, sometimes it could be through your demise, it could be through some other type of partnership falling out, or for whatever the reason. What are some of the steps that people should be taking as business owners to protect their assets?
And this is an excellent question, because, we're in a time where we talk a lot. I know I do, at least, where we talk a lot about legacy building.
That's
and being
exactly
able
right.
to pass down generational wealth and breaking generational curses and things like that have often plagued the culture. And so being able to come from the space of doing something different and operating in a different space, I'm glad we're having this conversation. And the thing about it is, some of these things, some people are not going to appreciate, and that's okay. But the question still remains, is what people can do to protect themselves and, of course, their businesses, because your business is not going to be any greater than you are. It is an extension of self and the team that you build.
That's correct.
And so if we look at it even just from an individual approach, what can an individual do as they start a business to protect their assets, or to protect their business or their family and their legacy? So first thing, in wanting to shield your business, if you may, from the event of a divorce, if we're having this discussion, or you're tuning into the show and you're not yet married, one of the first things that you can do, and people are going to disagree with me, that's okay, like I said, get a prenuptial agreement. Because how it works is this: the default is what the state decides it is, which is what the law states that it is. And in the state of Maryland, if you are married, your property becomes your property, right? Collectively. There is no more I, there is only we.
Right.
And what that means is, in the event, no, of course, no one gets married to get divorced. I get that. However, in the event that you were to get a divorce after you've gotten married, then how Maryland does it is they look at different factors and they make a decision about what is equitable. Okay. And a lot of times what that ends up being is 50-50. Now that means every single bit of property that you've acquired, absent if it's not in a prenuptial agreement, or you inherited it or got it as a gift, if you got it after the day you said I do, it's marital property. It doesn't matter if it's in your name alone, or her name alone, or your names together. What matters is you got it after you got married.
Let me break it down.
That event,
the
property can be divided.
So if you had this great big business that you spent 50, 70, maybe not that many years, but if you quite a few years building it, and you get married, that means the minute you get married, everything becomes 50-50.
So how it works is this: say, for instance, you get married and then you start the business, okay, right? Then the entirety, generally speaking, of the business is marital property, generally speaking. And I'll get back to that. But in the event that you get married and you have a business when you get married, there can be an argument that a portion of the business that increased in value during the marriage is marital property, and then subject to division.
Okay.
So,
but you would eliminate any question, like you said, by getting a prenuptial agreement. That would erase any doubt.
Generally speaking, yes, because okay, what the prenuptial agreement does is it takes it out of the state's hands and gives you and your future spouse the ability to make a decision about what happens to after acquired property. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in the interest of time, I get that. In the interest of time, other than the prenuptial agreement, what are some of the other steps that somebody might take as a business owner?
So some of the other things that you can do is you can create a trust. Like, say, for instance, you did not want, you wanted your property to pass down to your children, but maybe your children are young, okay, or irresponsible, whatever the case may be. Maybe they're young and irresponsible, right?
Okay.
But you want to still preserve that legacy. You can create what's called a trust. So when people think trust fund babies, that's
Okay.
that's what we're talking about, right? You can take that asset and put it in a trust and appoint a trustee. So in the event, say for instance, in the event of your demise, because that's when it becomes relevant. In
Okay.
the event of your demise, you can then have that property reserved in trust for your child, and they can access it at specific milestones if that's how you set it up. Like, say for instance, you say, I want them to go to college. So I want little Johnny to go to college. So when little Johnny turns 18, release, $20,000 or whatever the case may be,
Right.
for the purpose of little Johnny going to college. At 25, I want little Johnny to be able to buy his first house. Release $100,000. You can set it up that way, so that in all of these things, what you're doing is you're circumventing what the state would usually do, or what would be the default. Does that make sense?
Exactly, because if you don't take some type of step, the state is going to step in and do what the state does. This gives you more control over what happens when you leave. So if you're not married and you're thinking about getting married and you have a business, you might consider a prenuptial. If you have young people, you might set up a trust. What are some of the other items a business owner might do?
So some of the other things that you can do is make sure that you have a solid partnership agreement.
Okay.
So in the event that you have a partner in your
Okay.
business, you want to make sure that it's, all of your documents are straight, so that you've set it up properly. So whether you're going to be an LLC, whether you're going to be an LLP, whether you're going to be a corporation, whatever the case may be, but that your legal documents are proper, and in the order, and do what it is that you think they're going to do. Do you know what I mean?
That is so important, because I know many, like I said, I hate to talk about some of my clients, but some of my clients, they come in here, they shaking hands, they buddy, when the money is kind of low. But when that money starts to come in boatloads, some of those handshakes and backslapping kind of go out the window. I mean, everybody's buddies when you're broke, but that money starts to come in, people change. Well, how important is a will in this scenario, in this list of items?
It's funny that we had this conversation, because a client of mine unfortunately passed away yesterday.
Oh no!
And one of the conversations that I had to have was, did he have a will? And and what happens is, say for instance, you're going through a contentious divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted your property to go someplace else, but you don't have a will. What happens is that person that you were getting divorced from now gets all of your stuff.
Oh,
generally speaking, right?
Doesn't matter how can, until that paperwork until it was final, no matter where you were in that process, you could have been putting each other in headlocks, calling names but as long as you were still married, that it goes to that partner, that spouse.
Generally speaking, yes,
Okay.
because what happens is, again, the laws of the state step in.
Okay.
And what that is called Intestate Succession Act. And so it goes according to a schedule. So if you're married, then your spouse and any children or grandchildren that you have, those are the people in order of line of succession, right?
Okay.
So regardless of where you were in your relationship with them, that is the default. So this is where a will would then be able to take over in that event. You know what I mean? You can actually predetermine, or set up some of these things, in the event that you wanted to avoid some of these things. So to answer your question in a nutshell, having a will is very important. All of these things are a part of estate planning, because you're literally planning what you want your estate to look like, from all the way from marriage all the way to the grave, if that's what you desire. So if people have any questions about planning estates and setting up any of these documents, you can certainly contact my office. It's Hillman Legal Consulting at www.hillmanlegalconsulting.com.
Teacher, I'm telling you, you never disappoint. You are on top of it. I just learned a lot just by having you in the room, and I'm sure the audience has picked up some tips today, because I see so many people that, like you say, like your client, here today, gone tomorrow, no plan. Matter of fact, one of my clients are nearly full of.
I think we got frozen for a second.
We still see you. We still see you on this side. Like one of my clients are nearly full of junior.
For some reason, I'm not hearing you.
Okay, teacher, we can actually hear you on this side. It may be frozen on your end. I'm going to thank you for joining us today, and I'm going to continue to move. Thank you again for tuning in, folks. Check her out. Her information is you can find her at hillmanlegalconsulting.com, and we'll put this information on the website. Thank you again, teacher, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. We will be in touch. Folks, this is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host. We'll be back in a moment. We're going to talk about quickly why all money isn't good money. We're going to talk about should you ever forego business opportunities. And thank you again, attorney teacher Hillman, for that great information that you have provided to us today. This is the Marketing Pulpit, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in a moment. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more. They should be given more flexible work hours. I may stop at some period, but as long as folks bag the food, got to talk about it. All right. Thank you again for tuning in to the show today. We have a very, very active audience. Thank you again to attorney teacher Hillman. She was having some audio issues toward the end, but thank her again for tuning in. And also check her out, her website at hillmanlegalconsulting.com. And we even got a comment here from one of our listeners thanking attorney Hillman for that great information. We're going to talk about our sermon today. Our topic today is going to be about, is all money good money? And once again, William from Idea Gear says thank you. Marilyn says thank you. And of course, Loretta, thank you for tuning in today. And everybody else who's tuning in to this show. And just really thank you for making this show the success that it has been over the past 12 years. Now, quickly, we're going to talk about, should you forego business opportunities? Now, aren't we in business to make money? Think about it. Why would anybody say, look, thanks, but no thanks? I'm good. I don't want your business. Well, there is some truth to that saying that all money is not good money, because there are certain things you have to consider. And I'm going to go down the list quickly and tell you under what circumstances you have to wait. Why certain jobs you may just simply have to pass on. Sometimes you get a client that's just simply underfunded. They have big aspirations, but small bank accounts. And no matter what you do, they are not going to be able to fund those aspirations, and it's just going to make your job impossible. Now, some companies, like in my case, some companies require a financial statement before they even talk to you, because they understand the importance of this and what a problem it can be when you're dealing with a client where they got these great ideas, but they don't have the money to back it up. Sometimes when that happens, you have to say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm good. Sometimes it's a personality type issue. Sometimes it's personality, sometimes it's politics, sometimes there's just so much bad, negative energy in the room. It's just not going to work. Don't try to force it, ladies and gentlemen. I know sometimes you get hungry, you got a bad month, you're saying, look, I know this person is a pain in the you know what, but I'm going to take this client anyway. Sometimes the personality is going to be the undoing. Doesn't mean you're right, doesn't mean that you're wrong, doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong. But sometimes those personalities are just not going to match. Sometimes you may just have to say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm good. There are certain industries that are just not a match for your type of service. It's just not. That industry just may not be your bailiwick. And you can't force that square peg into that round hole. You may find that a niche, certain, like in my instance, I do a lot of attorneys, I do a lot of CPAs, I do a lot of, there's certain industries that just seem to be a good fit for me. But if somebody comes to me, like for instance, in real estate, I tend to stay away from real estate clients. I love real estate people. They put you in your house. They do good work for the community, but it's not a match for my service. And I'm gonna tell you why, because they provide, many of these real estate type companies, they provide their own in-house marketing. And sometimes you kind of like, you're duplicating the efforts. And for whatever reason, some industries just don't match with what you're offering. Don't force it. When that happens, you may have to say thanks, but no thanks. Sometimes it's the geographics. They're just so far away. You're not going to be able to reach them. Now, of course, with the internet and other types of technology now, that's less of a problem. But if you have a brick and mortar and you're trying to reach certain people and they're coming, you get dealing with travel logistics, staffing logistics, sometimes you may have to say thanks, but no thanks. Now, you have to ask this at all times. When I say whenever you get lost, you always have to go back to your purpose. Does it align with your purpose? Now, I probably turn down more business for this reason than any other reason. My purpose is not to get quick as rich as you can, everything else be damned. That does not align with my purpose because I'm dealing with a greater calling. I'm about building businesses. I'm about putting people to work. I'm about building an economic foundation in our community. I'm about uplifting people. If you are in an industry or if you have a service that is not aligning with that, I'm going to have to say thanks, but no thanks. I remember a few years ago, I turned down a big account. The account had a somewhat racist name, and it was selling substances and beverages that I thought was going to be detrimental to our community. I had to say no, thanks, but no thanks. All money is not good money. Yes, you should forego some opportunities. And here's a very important one: timing. Now this gets kind of fuzzy, but because sometimes you have to take certain jobs based on where you are in your business life cycle. When you're just getting started, man, you need to eat. You need to bring in business. You don't have that luxury of being picky and picking and choosing. You gotta get money in the door. Sometimes you have to kind of put that purpose aside for a minute till you get some money. That purpose not going to do you any jack if it's sitting on the shelf because you can't fund it. I'm not saying do something that's going to be that runs against your spirit or your core or your beliefs, but sometimes you have to suspend that perfectionist, purpose-driven cause and get some money in the door. But as you start to self-actualize, as your business start to grow, and you can start to pick and choose, the timing will change, and you should be able to say no to businesses later that you were able to say yes to sooner. And every growing business goes through this, almost without exception. And I dare you to find me an example. I don't care if you're an attorney, if you're an accountant, even if you're doing like services, food, and things like that. You start to say no as your business start to grow and you start to grow into your purpose, and we call that self-actualization. So sometimes as you start to self-actualize and you start to grow, get bigger, better, and you start to value your time and money, yes, you say thanks, but no thanks. Now, what are some of the costs of dealing with the wrong customer? What are some of the costs of this all money not being good money? The first one is money itself. You're going to find yourself constantly doing refunds and chargebacks and credits because there was no match to begin with. You would have saved yourself a lot of time and headache by just saying no from the beginning, because now, instead of you doing what we call death by 1,000 paper cuts, you could have said no in the beginning and saved yourself a lot of headache. Your time. You're going to constantly find yourself discounting and reducing your rate when you're dealing with the wrong type of customer. all money is not good money. Yes, sometimes you should have said no. Then there's the bad will that goes with it. If you had said no, you had a less likelihood you're going to have that bad review on Yelp, bad review out here when people searching on your name because you brought in a customer that you knew was not a fit. Bad will, dissatisfied customers are one of the costs of not saying no thanks, but no thanks. Not even to mention the stress that goes with it. Man, let me tell you, the older I get, the more I like to sleep. Man, I lay up in the bed now, man, I'm like a baby because I've said no to so many customers. Now I can't say that 10 years ago. Man, I was nervous as a snake, man. I'm gonna tell you, I couldn't sleep. I'm biting my nails. I'm drinking coffee. I'm thinking about smoking. I'm surprised I didn't get on drugs because I had the wrong kind of customer. But not anymore because I have self-actualized. I've said no, but no thanks, going back to that timing issue. Another cost of having the wrong type of customer is called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is not just a word, it's actually a theory. It's a proven theory that if you're working on product A or client A, you can't work on client B. Client A might be making you $100 and client B might be making you $100,000. The difference between those two is called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is real. Get these folks that are the wrong customer out of the way, and you will increase your sales and your money because of a thing called opportunity cost. Let me wrap this up for you. Let me put a bow on it for you. And thank you again, Brother Brown, for tuning in. What is the solution here? First of all, you got to start meeting folks. Now, of course, during the pandemic, it's gotten a little harder, but you better meet them on Zoom or WebEx or a phone or somewhere. You got to find out who these people are. Man, some of them, they put a nice little resume together, a little nice pro forma or a nice LinkedIn page. You start talking to them, man, those fangs come out. No, you got to meet these folks. You got to take more time to screen your clients. Something else you want to do, test them on a smaller project first. Before you get in bed with them totally, you better find out how difficult this person is going to be. In my case, I might say, look, let me go ahead and let's do your website before we start talking about building a 10-year plan, okay? By the time that website is done, I'm ready to throw you out in front of a train. Well, not in front of a train, but I'm ready to send you packing. I might say, look, well, we were glad to do your website. Let me tell you what, once you do this, for that business plan that you need, or that 10-year plan, or that marketing strategy, you might look at another company that's more in line with your goals and your purpose. So you might want to test them on a smaller project before you get totally in bed with them. And yes, it is okay to refer them to somebody who may be better suited. That's not a knock on the client or a knock on you. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes the personality is not right, the industry is not right, sometimes the purpose is not right, sometimes the time isn't right. Just hand them off to somebody else. And as I've said, and I'll continue to say, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you get lost along this journey, let your purpose be your guide. And that will answer this question for you once and for all. I want to thank you again, everybody, for tuning in today. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host. Go to marketingpulpit.com. You can watch the reruns of the show. You can also watch them on your favorite social media platform. We have a YouTube channel that's thriving. We have the LinkedIn. We have Facebook. And you can get some of the blurbs on Instagram as well. And thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Platinum. Thank you again, William. Thank you again, Gerald. Thank you again, Loretta. Thank you again, everybody else that I can't see. I know you're out there because I see your numbers, but you won't get your name. We can't see your name until you actually put a comment in the on the feed. That's why I'm recognizing some people and not others. I won't see your name unless you actually put a comment in the feed. I'm going to thank again for tuning in, and thank you again, Darlene. Again, thank you for tuning in. I mean, we got a lot of folks tuning in today, and thank you again for all the thanks and praises we've gotten for our guest, Teacher Hillman. Check her out at let me see, Hillman Legal Consulting. I'll see if I can get that on the website as well. Thank you again, Teacher, and thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We're going into the month of April next week. What is it? April showers bring May fly. Oh man, I don't need any more rain. Also, let's Let's share this show with others and don't keep all this good information to yourself. We'll be back next week. I am Robert Gatewood. This is the Marketing Pulpit TV show. And as I say, as I close every show, let me see who else. People still putting comments in. Thank you again. As I say after I close every show, if you want to be successful, you've got to do these three things. What do I say? Do the right thing, do it at the right time, and do it right. Enough talk. Let's get to work. People don't understand marketing. You can't stop every time the money runs out. You need to come on and tell people why your service is different. Why is everybody so angry? Airline passengers biting the TSA agents. I mean, it reminds me of one of those zombie apocalyptic movies. And as a community, collectively, we're going to be taken more seriously if we have that strong economic foundation. Do the right thing, do it at the right time, and you have to do it right. Enough talk. Let's get to work.